It's Mo. It is April, and that means it's time to do the quarter year book tag. This is called the quarter year crisis tag, and it was created by Roisin at Roisin Reads a few years ago, and I have the questions on my computer. I also like to do my first quarter stats in this video, and I might see if we can look at the goals too. Let's see how far I get along in this video. Let's see how long this video is before I commit. All right, the first question on the quarter year crisis or quarter year book tag is how many books have you read so far this year? And I'm just going to go with the first quarter, and I read exactly 50 books in the first quarter, which is a lot. One of my goals, I know, is to read less this year. I read 169 books in 2023, so I am trying to read less. I put my Goodreads goal, another goal, at 100 and my Storygraph goal at 100. I will talk about it later, but I don't like putting it at 100. I'm not going to put it at 100 books again. I'm definitely on track, obviously, to read more than 100 books, but I have slowed down my reading over the first 3 months, over the first quarter of the year. So the first month in January, I read 20 books. The next month, I read 16 books. And in March, I only read 14 books. So hopefully I'm on a trajectory to stay reading a few less books every month and bringing my overall number of books read down. But 50 books is awesome. I read a lot of great books in the first quarter, so I can't be mad about it. The next question is, have you already found a book that you think might be a 2024 favorite, a favorite of the year? I've read so many good books. I read 2 really good books in April so far, but I'm only going with the first quarter. I really enjoyed Diary of a Void by Emi Yagi. I found a new cozy mystery series that I really like, the Miss Polifax mystery series. I read the 39 Steps, which was a really great World War I romp mystery thriller. I loved that one. I read an autobiography of an ex-colored man, which has been on my list for a long time. Those are all books that I really, really loved. I don't think I've found a book so far this year, though, that like is giving me like, oh, this is going to be in my top 10 of 2024. I usually have read a book like that in the first month or so of the year, or 30 to 60 days of the year, and I don't know if I've really found that. The next question is, if not, what was your favorite? That wasn't quite a 5 stars, so I think I already answered that one. And follow up to that is any 1-star books or least favorite of the year, just so that you know, in case you're new here, I don't star rate books. I don't rate books in that way, so I can talk about some least favorites of the year, though. Mimi Lee Gets a Clue is a cat cozy mystery that I read for my cat cozy mystery project, and this one was really bad. Other than that, I think I've had a couple that, you know, weren't my absolute favorites of the year, but weren't bad books. I think the only truly bad book that I've read is Mimi Lee Gets a Clue, and I apologize for that. Jennifer J. Chow is a well-known and well-loved author by many, but that book was not for me. We have what is your most read genre so far? According to Storygraph, it is definitely mystery, and I would say that that is also, looking at my shelves, a pretty obvious thing to say. I've read a lot of mysteries for March Mystery Madness, but I've been reading mysteries all year long. Mystery is my favorite genre, so I'm happy about that, and it makes sense. A book that surprised me, I would say a book that surprised me, again, I have books in April that surprised me, but a book that surprised me maybe was How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. This book surprised me in that I really enjoyed it, obviously, but I was worried about reading it, and I don't think I had anything to worry about reading it. Like, I definitely thought I was going to get called out reading this book on my own bad habits that I need to change, and that is true. That's kind of what this book does. But because this book does that for everyone, it has a nice way of doing it so you don't feel like stressed about it. Another book that I would say was a surprise was any of the books that I've read so far from my Basement Box books series. So I have a series on my channel where I've been going through all the hundreds and hundreds of books that I have in my basement that have been in my basement for almost 10 years now. And I've pulled quite a few books up from those boxes that I've already read, and almost every single one of them I've enjoyed. I've also unhauled a lot of books from that series, so if you want to check it out, I will leave a playlist linked down below. A book that's come out in 2023 already that you want to read but haven't yet. As of March, I did really want to read Clear by Karis Davies. I found a proof of this in a little free library, but I did read it in April, so I don't know if this one really counts. Another book, a book that's come out this year. I don't know. I don't keep up on new releases, so it's hard for me to say. I have only read a couple of 2024 books so far. I don't think there's really one that I'm anticipating that I haven't yet read, but there are definitely some that I'm excited to read when I eventually find them. One goal you made that you're succeeding at, so I am succeeding at my goal, and like I said, I set my Goodreads and my Storygraph goal at 100 books this year, and I definitely won't be doing that again next year. I don't like seeing the tracker go up and the percentage be the same as the amount of books I've read, if that makes sense. So I'm at 50 some books, say at the end of March I'm at 50 books, and so the tracker says I'm at 50% of my reading goal, but I don't like seeing it go up in percentage just by that. So I would definitely mix it up and either choose like 95 books or 115 books so that the percentage and the amount of books are not exactly the same. I just find it very unaesthetic and unappealing, and I know that's like a weird nuancy thing, but also it really doesn't matter. But I am succeeding at that goal. Am I succeeding at the goal of reading less? Probably not. The next question, one goal you made that you need to focus on. I'm definitely not succeeding at my goal of consistency with my content, and that's something that I really want to focus on, but I don't think I'll be able to focus on it in the second quarter because I am learning a lot of new things at my job and I'm working a lot, so I think that'll be something that I will probably save for the second half of the year and try to really work on in the second half of the year. And then new to you booktubers, bookstagrammers, book talkers for 2024 that you would recommend. I did not prepare for this question for sure. Who have I been enjoying? I don't really do bookstagram so much. I definitely don't do book talk, but I'm trying to think if there's anybody that's new to me that I've really enjoyed. There's some people who weren't posting and now they've started posting again that I really enjoy. There's some people who were posting inconsistently or had a slump of posting who are now posting content that they really like. I think it's been a theme this year to post things that you really want to post and to get excited about your own content again, which is great. I don't know if last year I mentioned Ben Reads Good. He has a great channel and I've really been enjoying his stuff. I might have been watching him at this time last year, but I might have discovered him after that. Brown Booktuber is someone that I started watching this year. I haven't watched all of his videos, but I've liked the videos that I have watched of him. He did a Ramadan reading list that I watched that I really liked, 4 books about Sudan. So he does like more literary fiction, but like in reference to certain places and certain ideas, which is cool. I think I found him because of a video of books about Palestine or by Palestinian authors. I know that I watched them last year, but I've been really liking Kat and Yvonne's videos. I will list them down below. They're friends and they often have videos together, but they are great individual booktubers as well. I don't have a lot to recommend to you, but definitely let me know if you found new booktubers lately that you think I would enjoy, especially if they have cats or they read a wide variety of books. I would love to check them out. Okay, we got well interrupted, but I wanted to go back to the stats that I have from the first quarter. So these are stats that I compile on my own, and are they accurate? Are they not accurate? Maybe, maybe not. I did read 50 books in the first quarter, and something that I like to track is if the authors of those books were new to me or that I have read before. So in the first quarter of 2024, I read 30 new to me authors and 20 authors that I read before. I should probably do a stat for rereads. I reread 2 books in the first quarter of the year. I read The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, and I read The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, Person of Color, Asian authors. 32 of the books I read were by BIPOC authors, and 18 of the books I read were by white authors. This is a very nice stat to see because I always like to read at least 50%, and my goal is always to read 50% BIPOC authors, but I read 64% BIPOC authors and only 36% white authors. So that's a really good start for the year and a really good start and continuation of my goals if we're talking about goals in this video as well. One goal that did not do as well is my ratio of queer to non-queer authors, stories, books with queer representation. I read 86%. That is 43 books that were non-queer and only 7 books that were queer. That's only 14%. So my goal for queer is always to be at 25%, a quarter of my reading to have some kind of queer themes, either queer rep, but more ideally written by queer authors. Along that same line and along my goals is the translated work, reading at least 30%. Wait, was it 30 or 25? See, now I forget. I should go back and look at that goals video. But I think it was 25% translated work is a new goal for me this year. I want to make sure that I am always reading a lot of translated work because then I'm hearing stories from other countries and other places and other populations and other people that I might not normally read. Unfortunately, it is the exact same as the queer authors. I only read 14%, that's 7 books that were translated so far in the year, and I read 43 that were non-translated. And translated just means any books that were translated into English from another language. Nonfiction is not a goal for me ever because I read nonfiction. I like nonfiction. I read 9 nonfiction books so far in 2024. That means I read 18% nonfiction and 82%, 41 books that were fiction. As far as the breakdown of those BIPOC authors, I have 14 Black authors, 10 Asian authors, 3 Latinx authors, 1 Middle Eastern or North African author, and 3 Indigenous authors. And those are individual books by authors, not the authors themselves. So I could have read 2 Indigenous works by the same author, but 2 books count, not the individual authors. And then also as far as Black, Latinx, there could be crossover, or Middle Eastern, North African, there could be crossover, but it's like kind of predominantly what they are, and Black generally means like Black American authors. As far as genres, just like Storygraph said, according to my own stats, the most read genre in Q1 is mystery with 18 books, and then I have contemporary with 7, sci-fi with 5, poetry with 6, nonfiction with 9, horror with 8, classic with 3, romance with 1, fantasy with 2. And again, these are books that are like I would put predominantly in one pile or the other. The next stat I track is male author, female author, or trans non-binary author. And in the first quarter, I read predominantly male authors. I read 27 books by male authors, only 22 books by female authors, and only 1 book by a trans or non-binary author. I think that was Bitter by Akwege Emeze. I don't really like that stat. I definitely don't want to be reading white male authors as much as other author communities or collections, but I would definitely like to be reading more trans and non-binary authors. That obviously goes along with the goal of reading 25% queer books as well. And again, I don't necessarily want to be reading predominantly white female authors either. I would rather be reading more female authors of color. The trans and non-binary collection section of this pie chart is definitely at their own discretion. Like if I read an author and they identify as woman, even if they are a trans woman, but I don't know that, my point is I don't go into a lot of research into what gender the authors are. It's more if they specifically say what their gender is in their bios, or I know from the news or whatever, but I'm not like really investigating. Whatever you predominantly call yourself, that's what I'm going on. Because I keep track of every book that comes into my library, because I keep track of every book that comes into the house, I have my recently acquired book spreadsheets, my RAB spreadsheets, and I like to track how many books I've read from prior years from that spreadsheet, so owned pre-2024, how many I've read in the quarter from 2024, so books that I've acquired this year and also read this year. I like to keep track of how many audiobooks unowned I've read, so the first two categories could be a mixture. I might own the physical copy but have read it on audio, that's fine, but audio unowned is specifically and only books that I do not own physically and I've only read on audio. And then I have an other category, and that other category is for like library books or books that people have lent me, things like that. Out of the books that I've read so far in the first quarter, 32 of those were owned pre-2024. So I brought them into my library before the year of 2024, and they are on my RAB spreadsheet, either in those years or in, I do have a sheet that's like since I started that spreadsheet. Then I read 2 books in the first quarter from 2024, so I acquired them in 2024 and I read them in 2024. I read 14 unowned audiobooks, so this is definitely the number that I would like to see go down in future quarters, because I am trying to work on reading my physical TBR, and every book that I read on audio that is not on my physical TBR as well means that it's a book that's staying on my TBR longer than I want it to. And then I have 2 books. Those are my sets. I usually do a RAB spreadsheet video. I haven't done one yet this year. I will be doing one eventually, but let me know if you want to see it like sooner rather than later. Looking at my goals will help me stay on track with my goals, but I'm gonna have to scrub through this video a little bit and see what my goals are. I, of course, do have them written down somewhere, but I'm not sure where. So the first goal that I mentioned is my reading goal, and that I set my reading goal at 100 books. And I've already talked about this. I'm not super happy that I set it at 100 books, so I will not be doing that again, but I am on top of that goal. The next goal was to read 50% BIPOC authors, at least 50%. We already talked about it. I'm doing well. And I was right. It was 25% queer authors, so we know that I am not on track with that. But in April, it still is, because it's still April, the Trans Girl April readathon, so I have been reading some queer books and some trans book for that. So hopefully with that jumping off point for the beginning of quarter 2, I will keep up reading books with queer characters, queer stories, or by queer authors. Oh, okay, so interesting. So I said 20% translated works, so that's good because it's a little bit less than what I thought, and as we know, I'm not on track with that either, but I've already read 3 translated works this month, which is not enough to make it up to 20%, but again, if I can just get in the habit of reading translated works whenever possible, then hopefully I should be able to stick to my goal of 20% for the year. So my next goal is to continue reading diversely, and that's books by various peoples, books by people of color, books by people with different cultures than my own, books by people who are different than me, different experiences, live in different places, speak different languages, have different ideologies, and all sorts of good things like that. So I think I'm doing pretty well on that. That's like a pretty intangible goal to just say like reading diversely, but I think I am. I obviously still do read a lot of American and white American books, but I have read a lot of books by people of color, and I think I've also read quite a few books from cultures that I'm less familiar with. I definitely like to see a lot of diversity in my reading, and I think so far my reading goal of reading diversely is going well. I forgot that I had made a section for book goals, so not necessarily reading goals like as far as my reading, but just reading in general and books in general, and one was to read off my shelves. And we saw that I'm doing pretty well on that. I could definitely be better. And it does mention my RAB spreadsheet, and that I need to look at that and see how many books are on my TBR. During March, which is usually my TBR month, I was planning on counting my entire TBR, but I just never got the chance. My work got extremely busy and I didn't have the opportunity to pull apart my entire library to count all the books on my TBR. That is something that I would still like to do, but it is well over 700 and it just keeps growing. I have a feeling that one of the goals in here is going to be to try and buy less. I'm still technically on a book buying ban, but like, has it been going well? I don't know. So yeah, the last goal for that book section was just to stay on my book buying or my book acquiring ban, and it was to try to not acquire so many books in the year of 2024. Like I said, I don't think that's going super well, but we should do a check-in on that too, like specifically for that book acquiring ban. The next goals are related to my channel, and I already saw the first one is consistency, and that is out the window for the first quarter and probably for the first half of the year, but we'll get back to it. Responding to comments and keeping up with the community and keeping up with engagement is the next part of this goal, and that is also out the window, but also hopefully will pick back up in the second half of the year. So this second part, this part of my goals that's all about my channel is not doing good at all, but that is to learn Procreate so that I can up the animation and the graphics of my channel, both within my videos and like my thumbnails and stuff. This is something that I'm still really interested in. I think about a lot, and I have on a lot of my like trackers that I have in my bullet journal or on spreadsheets. So I will eventually get to this goal, but it's just not a priority right now since work is so busy and I can't even keep up with consistency, let alone add other elements. So the last goal for that section is to be a better booktuber, to learn how to edit better, to learn how to make videos better, to find my niche a little bit more and connect with my community more. And again, I think those are all out the window until the second half of the year. I definitely have plans and ideas and so many videos that I want to do, but like I don't have time right now to barely do anything. So eventually I will come back to that, and eventually I will work on that goal more pointedly. I mean, I'm always working on it a little bit, but work on it more pointedly and try to really achieve some of those goals. But at the moment, I have to worry about other things. That was the quarter year crisis tag or the quarter year tag. Let me know in the comments below, because like personally, I don't like the mid-year freak out. I don't like the freak out part. I don't like the quarter year crisis. I don't like the crisis part, but I love doing these tags. So I think I've been calling them just mid-year tag or quarter year tag, leaving it at that, but I think people really recognize it from those added adjectives. So let me know what your thoughts on that are. I will probably continue to just call it the quarter year tag. Let me know if you're on track with your goals, the goals that you set out for 2024. Let me know how your reading's going in the first quarter. Thanks so much for joining me and Marty today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.